Hi, my name is Rachel Smets and I am sitting here with Tanya Visser, who is from South Africa, and we are currently sitting in the Netherlands. And my goal is to support expats with their transition into a new country. So I decided to take regular interviews, and this will be with Tanya today, talking about the big differences between South Africa and the Netherlands, and actually more so all the challenges, the research, the opportunities, the sad, the happy moments, everything. So we'll get to know everything. So Tanya,
yes.
Thank you so much for this interview, first of all. And why don't you tell us shortly who Tanya is?
Well, I'm Tanya. I'm from South Africa. I have been in the Netherlands since March 2015. So for 3 months now. I've moved here with my husband, Grant, and we have 3 grown-up daughters back home in South Africa.
They stayed there?
They've stayed there, yes. Hopefully they'll be joining us at some point, but not in the near future. And yes, we love socializing, we enjoy meeting new people, reading, music, the art, the history. Yeah, that's us.
That's you. Okay, thank you. So, why did you want to move? What was your reason of leaving South Africa? Was it horrible there?
No, absolutely not. South Africa was paradise. We had good careers, we had a beautiful 4-bedroom home on a big piece of land, we had 2 cars, we had no debt. It was
anybody's
paradise.
dream.
Anybody's dream. Lovely
still
lifestyle.
You moved.
And still we moved.
Okay.
Because staying in your comfort zone makes you old and stale. And we've always wanted to see how the other half lived. Move somewhere else and experience something new. And we wanted to do it before we get too old. And we sit with a lot of what ifs and regrets.
Oh, I so recognize that. I keep saying I don't want to grow old and think, what if I would have, or, So it's something you just have to do it. And I remember when I first moved 14 years ago, my very first move to another country, I had everything myself. I had a good job, a good career, everything. And I thought, wait a minute, what is it like to be an expat? What is it like to live in another country? And I have no regrets whatsoever. But you moved only a few months ago,
yes.
right? So it's very, very recent.
It's very new, yeah.
So, okay, you decided you wanted to experience another country, another life. Why the Netherlands? How did you make your choice?
We actually looked at a number of countries.
Okay.
We started with the English-speaking countries, the favourites of immigrants from South Africa, being New Zealand, Australia, Canada, America.
Yeah.
We also looked at the UK, but I have a German passport, so moving to Europe was the easiest move. We didn't have to worry about any point system or getting a green card or any of the other hassles that we may have faced moving to another country. And then picking the Netherlands, which is not an English-speaking country as such, was because I'd been here 4 years ago and fell in love with the country. Having said that, I had only really seen Amsterdam.
Yes.
And the Netherlands is so much more than that. Yes. And it's beautiful, and the people here are awesome. So I convinced my husband that this was the place that was going to be our next paradise.
Okay. So you did compare different countries, and you did a lot of research, it seemed like.
Yes, we did. We had a look, we researched all the countries we were considering rather thoroughly to a point. We looked at the legal ramifications of moving, their economies, things like public transport systems, job availability, unemployment rates, things like that.
Yeah.
And also a little bit about their cultures to see how different it would be to our own.
Yes, and also the things that would suit and fit you, actually. Yes. I think that's really, really important, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's great to live in another country and just leave and don't do enough research. So I think what you say is really, really important, to at least know a bit about the country, a bit about the people, a bit about the economy,
About the culture is very
Exactly,
important.
exactly. And that is very, very different for each person. So you probably, when you do research, you really look at things that you're interested in and things that you would be needing. So
it's very subjective, yeah. I couldn't say to all South Africans move to the Netherlands.
exactly.
It wouldn't work for every single person.
Yeah. Some would be really unhappy here. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how long did you then do, I mean, yes, you decided the Netherlands, and then the whole period of really, until you really moved this year, then that took a long time?
It took the entire process from deciding on the Netherlands to actually moving was over a year. From deciding in the Netherlands, we then went into even more research, watched more YouTube videos on other people that had emigrated here just to get their points of view, did some more research on exactly where we would be living, how we would be finding work, what government paperwork we would need, health insurance, you know, all the legalities of the move.
You found all that before you moved?
Before we moved,
great.
yeah. What visas we would need, exactly what the different process would be for my husband, who was travelling on a South African passport, and me on a German passport. So we found out all of that before we left. We then had businesses to sell and property to sell, which we did, and we were out of work for a while. And during that time we studied a little bit and had a long holiday before the big stress of the move, coming to a new country, knowing no one, you know, knowing nothing.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So how different, or let's say, what are the biggest things that you miss?
Okay, biggest things we miss. Obviously, other than my children, biggest things would be certain foods. There's a drink in South Africa called brandy. It's sort of a cross between rum and whiskey, and it just doesn't exist in the Netherlands. We have found a shop that will ship it to us, but it's based in Germany, I think. My husband misses the brandy. I miss boerewors and my spices, but they do get replaced with other foods that we've never had in South Africa that we didn't even know about.
Yes, of course.
Like bitterballen and the herring that they have here that you eat with onions and
typical Dutch things.
Typical Dutch things that we've never experienced before. But yes, certain foods and drinks. Biggest thing I miss is not knowing where anything is, the geography of everything. You know, finding my way around and not having any landmark that I know.
You know what happens to me every time I move to a new country? Okay, you find your house, you live, you unpack your boxes, and then you go out in the street, and then you start finding your way, and then you drive around. And then the very first time that I'm driving back to my home, and I'm like, yay, I found my home again. I'm home. This is my home. It's like, okay, I'm getting to know the streets. It's such a big
amazing.
challenge.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And it's such a little thing. It's the little things that can really get you down the most. It's not the big things. The big things you've prepared for.
Yes.
But it really is the little things that can get you down, and something as silly as finding your own house from the shop can be this major achievement.
Yeah, but another silly thing is just finding a normal egg or a carton of milk in a supermarket. I mean, I've spent hours in the supermarket the first week just trying to figure out what foods is there here and where is my milk that I always buy.
For me it was shampoo.
Shampoo?
It was shampoo, yes. I have
so many kinds.
Used to use a French brand of shampoo. It was a cheap brand in South Africa, but it's made in France. And I would have thought that the Netherlands would have had it. They don't. So I had to figure out, you know, what shampoo to use, and it was all different brands and all in Dutch. So trying to find shampoo for normal hair just became this huge thing.
Oh wow, yeah. Shampoo, milk, I've heard many things. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge, and it's something you can't prepare in advance. So what do you do? So those are ways of adjusting, I would say. What are the big cultural difference, the people, you know, connecting to people between South Africa and here? Or how did you adjust to the culture? Or
the Dutch are very direct, which I like.
Yes.
But it borderlines being rude sometimes, almost. But they're not. They're actually just being extremely honest.
It's how they are. Yes.
It's how they are, and it's something to get used to. They are less pretentious and less polite
I agree with that. You know
where you
yeah,
stand
yeah.
with them. They are extremely friendly, but they're not as welcoming as South Africans. South Africans will welcome strangers into their home
Okay.
and immediately include you in their inner circle.
Really?
Whereas the Dutch people they're very friendly and helpful, but they keep you at arm's length, and it takes quite a bit of time.
Yeah, stay at the door for a while and
to make friends, to be allowed inside.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that is quite different.
Okay.
It's very different, of course, if you know the language. It's a big must. If you're trying to speak their language, they tend to be a little bit more open than if you're not.
Yeah. I think language is really, I mean, I love languages and I speak 6, but I think it really helps to grasp the culture. Because like you mentioned before, in the Netherlands they all speak English, but it's still not the same if you don't speak their local language.
Correct.
So it does, yeah. But you learned before you moved, or?
We did, but we did leave it a little late. We should have started learning, when we first decided on the Netherlands, a year before we moved, we should have started learning Dutch. Yeah. We left it to about 3 months before we came. Yeah. So we definitely didn't know enough by the time we arrived.
It's hard as well when you're still abroad because you don't really use it, you don't hear it, you don't...
It is more difficult, yes.
So, I can totally understand that. Okay, so for anybody who wants to become an expat or is thinking about it, what was your biggest challenge when you first moved?
The biggest challenge is no matter how much you research and how many YouTube videos you watch, you are never going to cover all the aspects. There are questions you don't even think to know to ask. And you get here and you find out, and it can really get you down. So the biggest thing is, yes, research. But what I would advise somebody to do is, preferably even before they come, is to get a hold of somebody like you who is a one-stop shop. It can cut your research time in half, and you get the advice that you didn't even know to ask. Because that's the biggest challenge. No matter how much you mentally prepare, the emotional roller coaster that you have when you live in a new country the blow can be softened by somebody who actually holds your hand through the process, and it's the softer emotional sides as well as the hardcore legal paperwork and all that jazz.
But I think there's a lot you can find, like you did, about the material stuff, the paperwork, the visas. You can find all that on the internet, and a house and all of that, and like you said, those are the big stuff, but it's these little things. How is the culture? How do you speak to somebody? How do you address somebody? How many kisses do you give? 2, 3, 1, 4? How do you greet? Can you shake a hand, or
should you bow?
Just these things like that, And I agree, because I mean, and also which supermarket. I remember we had this conversation, which supermarket to go to. These are the little things, and also the fact of having or knowing somebody that understands what it is like to move. Because
that's right.
Yeah, at the end of the day, even if you have a house and you have a car and you have a job or no job, but you sit at home and you don't know anybody, and I think it can be very...
It is, and even if you do know people in the country, they have their own lives, and they may not have the time to spend giving you advice, number one, and number two, they may not even understand your needs, because they've lived in that country for a long period of time, or maybe even all their lives. So they do not even think to tell you certain things that you will need when you arrive, because they're not expats.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, rounding off with the big question for any newcomer or people who want to become an expat, what would you advise? Your biggest advice?
Biggest advice, get hold of somebody like Rachel to help you through. Understand that it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. Don't let the little things get you down, because it does get better. You will find a house, eventually.
And the language, I think.
And the language,
Okay, wow. So, thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure.
And we'll definitely keep in touch, because I want to know how it's all going for you, you guys. So, this was Tanya Visser from South Africa. Please greet in South African.
In Afrikaans.
In Afrikaans. I love the language.
Okay. Baie dankie dat julle almal geluister het, en hopelik sien ons meer Suid-Afrikaners hier in die Nederland.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Less than 30 seconds.